Morning everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Statutory Licensing Committee, the main purpose of which is to approve the minutes of previous meetings of the Statutory Licensing Committee. So could I ask members if they are happy to approve the following minutes of the following meetings: 31st of January, 17th of January, 25th of April, 10th of May, 30th of May, 11th of July and the 19th of July. Are you happy to approve those minutes?
I'm happy.
Yeah, agreed.
And those minutes are formally approved, which concludes the meeting, and we will now reconvene very shortly as the Licensing Subcommittee. Councillor, we're a public meeting, so we are being webcast, and partly because of the acoustics in this room, it's really helpful if you do use your microphone. So if you're going to speak, if you could just press the button and do that, and then if you could switch it off afterwards, because I think if more than three are switched on at the same time, none of them works. That's the position we find ourselves in. So I'm David Barker, I'll be chairing the subcommittee this morning. To my left and right are the members of the committee. Would you like to introduce yourselves, please?
So I'm Roger Davison, Councillor for Ecclesall.
Councillor Ralph, Councillor from Netherhead and Sharrow.
We also have a number of officers of the council who are working with us this morning. Would you like to introduce yourselves, please?
Morning, Samantha Bond, Legal Advisor to the subcommittee.
Good morning everyone, I'm Jane Goff from Licensing and I'm here to read the report this morning.
Jay Bell from Democratic Services, and I'm just taking the notes today.
And could you just confirm your names, please, for the record?
Hannah Beddoe, licensee of the Horse and Jockey.
Mark Craddock, Director for True North Brewco.
Hello, I'm Ken Yardley, I'm the owner of True North Brewco.
It's Neil Pates, Environmental Protection Service.
Thank you, and you are all very welcome to the meeting this morning. You will notice that somewhere in your pack you will have different page numbers to us, which isn't helpful, is the hearing procedure for this morning. And you'll see that at point 4 of that, it states the solicitor to the committee will outline the procedure to be followed. So could I ask Sam to outline the procedure, please?
I was going to say, have you all got some papers to look at, or would it be helpful to have a pack?
It'd be helpful to have a pack.
Yeah. We'll probably flit all around it, so yeah, it probably would. Just get that sorted. We did have 3 cases for today, so we'll just sort out the relevant pages for you. So we're somewhere in the middle of that pack. Start at page 80. The procedure's actually taken from another case. It's on page 119, but I'll just run through it now. It looks a lot worse than it is. So the licensing officer this morning, who's Jane, will just introduce and go through the report for us. If there are any questions concerning the report, these can be asked by members and the applicant. That's sort of where if there's anything that you consider to be missing or inaccurate. If so, just flag that up and we'll get it amended for the record. We'll then turn over to the representatives for the responsible authority. So we've got Mr. Pates this morning, who will detail their relevant representations. There'll be an opportunity for members to ask questions, and with the leave of the chair, you guys can ask Mr. Pates some questions as well. Once we've done that, we'll head over to you to detail the application as listed in the report, to respond to any representations that have also been made by Mr. Pates here, and just to tell us anything else that you think is important for us to know. Again, similarly, there'll be an opportunity for questions from members, and with the leave of the chair, Mr. Pates may have some questions for you guys as well. You'll then be given the opportunity to sum up the application, just to leave us with any final thoughts that you think might be relevant before we take the options as detailed in the report from Jane. And members will then go into private session where we'll pause the recording so they can take legal advice and consider the application. So the decision of the committee this morning will be given in accordance with the requirements of the, given in accordance with the requirements of the Licensing Act 2003 and regulations made thereunder. Anytime during the hearing this morning, members can ask for legal advice. So we can either just have a discussion in open session as we are now, or we'll probably just withdraw into another room, do that in closed session, and then we'll report back when we come back in, just what that advice was and basically what we discussed. And the hearing's public this morning, as Councillor Barker's already said, so we are being live webcast. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything, if everyone's happy with all the documents that we've got, and we're good to go, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And as Sam says, the process is a lot less complicated than it looks when it's written down. So could we start with the report then, please, Jane?
Of course, good morning everyone. Thank you for coming today to the hearing to consider the notice of objection to a temporary event notice submitted for the Horse and Jockey 248250 Wadsley Lane. So the Environmental Protection Service submitted an objection against the temporary event notice on, I don't know the date. Sorry, the temporary event was received on the 5th of August, I beg your pardon. The event applied for was to cover live music outdoors for Oktoberfest, 6 p.m. till 9 p.m, which is, majority of music would be background music played through speakers with a playlist and a live set from a professional umpire band playing with no PA. However, they will play with trombones and horns for 45-minute sets, 7 till 7:45. The details of the licensable activities are within the application, which is Saturday the 17th September, 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. for the provision of regulated entertainment. The notice of objection was received by the licensing service from Environmental Protection on the 5th of August, the details of which is within the pack and Appendix B. The applicant and all parties relevant have been invited to the hearing and are at Appendix C. So just to scoot down the report a little bit, we'll go to Section 8, which is the appeal section. So the Licensing Act 2003, Section 181 and Schedule 5 makes provision for appeals to be made by the premises user and the Chief Officer of Police against decisions of the licensing authority to the Magistrates' Court. So the recommendations today, Chair, are that members carefully consider the representations made and take such steps as committee consider necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Have members got any questions regarding the report at all? Do the applicants have any questions regarding the report? Are we happy that this is an accurate reflection of why we're here this morning? If that's great, then it's over to Mr. Bates, the interested party, to state your objections to this application today.
Thank you, Chair. If I could start by just highlighting why the temporary event notice, or TEN, is required. Normally, premises would be able to undertake this type of event without a requirement for a temporary event notice. Deregulation and the Live Music Act would permit this type of activity. The reason that the TEN is required arises from the changes that were made to the premises when the outdoor facilities at the rear were improved and at variation application which allowed these changes, imposed a condition at the request of Environmental Protection Service for a noise management plan to be required. That was on the back of considerable number of neighbour concerns that were raised about the potential for the improvement to the outdoor facilities to increase noise and noise nuisance. So there's a condition on the notice, on the premises licence rather, that requires this noise management plan to be in place and to be approved by Environmental Protection Service. The first point on the approved noise management plan is that no speakers are allowed to broadcast sound within or to the outdoor area, and that reflects the concern of the neighbours over the improved outdoor facilities. But there is a provision that outdoor events can be approved subject to prior notification and agreement with the council, and so that's the basis for the 10 having been submitted to allow this event to take place, which otherwise wouldn't be permitted under the terms of the licence and the associated noise management plan. So if I could then talk a little bit about the temporary event notice. It's requesting and allows for 250 people to attend a Oktoberfest event, which is largely outdoor, includes the provision of live and recorded music, both of which are sort of characteristic of that type of Oktoberfest celebration with umpar music. There's a live umpar band proposed who do a couple of 45-minute sets, sort of wander around the outside taking requests and engaging with the audience, and then for the rest of the duration there's amplified recorded umpar music. The event, by the way, is during the evening. I think the temporary event notice records it as being 6 to 9 p.m. in the outdoor area. So if I could just highlight the Google Maps plan or photo that I distributed at the beginning. That's really just to highlight the noise sensitivity of the premises in terms of the proximity of the neighbouring properties, which you can see closely surround the car park area where the event's proposed to take place. The front couple of photos just give the general context of the premises, and then staple on the back there's a second picture which is more of a close-up of the performance area, which if you look at the back of the car park, there's a small grassed area where typically the entertainment is located. Well, certainly has been with previous events, although as I say with this one, I think there's a bit more of the umpar band with the trombones and tubas and whatever wandering around the audience on the site. But if I can highlight on that close-up just how close some of the neighbouring properties are within 10 metres of the performance area. I think that's quite clear, hopefully. So the reason for the objection is on the back of neighbour concerns. There were another temporary event earlier in the year really highlighted the neighbour concerns, which is something that I've discussed at length with the premises and the premises management. Both Hannah and Mark will be aware of this. This was the Jockfest event, which presented a number of live bands throughout the day and evening, which created a number of complaints from the neighbours, probably most of the ones that you can see in the photo actually. And this has really highlighted that that type of louder, more raucous event is very likely to generate a high level of complaint and, well, a significant level of complaint. And those people that are disturbed relate that that the disturbance is considerable. So with that in mind, I've objected to this event. Whilst the live music element is relatively limited, my view is that the general character of the outdoor Oktoberfest sort of festivities are by their nature quite rowdy. There's obviously a fair amount of alcohol consumed. It's a Hofmeister promoted event, and I think we're all familiar with what's involved in Oktoberfest. It's an image we can all conjure up. My view is, and this was expressed to Mark and Hannah when they inquired about the EPS view on the event before putting the temporary event in, my view was that it was unsuitable for the location, particularly in the context of the recent problems with the Jockfest event. I was concerned that the live element of the music can't be adjusted. Whilst it's acoustic, they are particularly loud and intrusive acoustic instruments. You can't turn them down. And the accompanying music is, in my view, likely to be quite intrusive, simply because whilst it's stated as being background music, throughout the course of a Oktoberfest event, I'd ask you to really consider just how background recorded music is likely to be, given that there's going to be 100 plus people outside in a fairly rowdy drinking context. For music to be heard, I think it would also be clearly audible to those properties that you can see nearby on the images that I've presented. And as I say, this was advice that I gave prior to the 10 being submitted, in the hope that the applicant would see that it was perhaps unreasonable, given the context of the recent complaints and indeed the unreliability of the current management who, having submitted the temporary event notice for Jockfest, misled the responsible authorities, describing that event as involving only acoustic music sets, which then transpired to actually involve at least 3 full amplified bands going on into the evening and causing, as I say, a great deal of disturbance. So I don't have a lot of confidence in the management in that respect. Having said that, I'm happy to acknowledge that there have been other events that have taken place under temporary event notices in the new improved outside area, and I think when these events have been more appropriate to the facilities, with a lower level of background music and more easily controlled, they've gone ahead without a high level of complaint, and whilst some of the neighbours do maintain that these other events have been intrusive, my view has been that it's only reasonable to allow some of these events to take place at the premises, provided they're properly controlled. So I don't want to give the impression that we're wholly against allowing occasional events, that we're looking to strictly apply the terms of the noise management plan in all circumstances. It's very simply that the Oktoberfest event is, in my view, likely to cause further complaint, and I have a duty as responsible authority, or representing my department rather as responsible authority for the prevention of public nuisance, to take those concerns into account and make representations to protect the interests of the neighbours and the locality. I have received a degree of support, and you may be aware that the objection was publicised in the local press prior to this hearing, and on the back of that I've been contacted by 3 neighbouring households directly, who have all conveyed support and basically thanked me for objecting because of their own concerns about the event and the likelihood of further disturbance. I've also been contacted by Councillor Christine Gilligan-Kubo, who emailed me a couple of days ago, and if you'll allow me to, I'll just read out the short email that was sent. It says, "Hi Neil, I've received several messages over the last couple of days and regularly receive complaints from local residents about the outdoor events held by the Horse and Jockey. There was a lot of opposition to the granting of the licence to hold outdoor music events in the first instance. I know of other such venues in the heart of residential areas that are not allowed to hold outdoor music events. I am very glad that you are considering not granting a licence for the Oktoberfest, and would urge you to consider not allowing any outdoor music events in this venue. It does not seem to be a suitable venue for outdoor music events due to its proximity to local homes." Now, clearly it's not within my gift to not allow this, but I am here making that representation to the committee. I hope you'll be sympathetic and take the neighbour and your colleague councillor's views into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open this up to questions now. Have members got any questions of Mr. Pace? Maroof, is there anything you would like to ask him at this stage?
Sorry, just a quick question. On that second image, there seems to be two parks at the back of the car park. Is that all part? Does that all of that belong to the Horse and Jockey? Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I can't really tell from the way you're describing it what you're asking.
So at the back of the car park, there seems to be a bit of grass, and then behind that it's not known what that is. Is that part of the Horse and Jockey's?
No, I think I'm describing it correctly from memory. The image shows the tarmac parking area, and then at the back of that, there's a small area of grass. I think this is surrounded by some hedges. That's probably equivalent to about 3 or 4 parking spaces. And then beyond that, that's just neighbour gardens.
Okay, thank you. That's it, thank you.
Roger, is there anything you'd like to ask?
Is there a precedent here? Has there ever been any outdoor musical events at these premises?
Yes, there have been a number, all of which have been authorised under temporary event notices subsequent to that requirement being imposed by the committee at the variation application in 2001. As I say, whilst there has been some neighbour concerns expressed retrospectively to some of the earlier events this year, it was the Jockfest event that generated a high degree of complaint and public concern. And some of those people then retrospectively highlighted that they have been disturbed by other events. And I've had a couple of complaints that the general use of the outdoor area has increased noise levels and does at times cause disturbance. But yeah, the short answer is there have been other events. Typically the ones where it's only been recorded music and it's been, say, a private party have only led to low-level complaint or no complaint, whereas the more lively live music event led to considerable complaints. And I think the point that I'm trying to convey is that there are certain types of event that the premises are intrinsically unsuited to because of the proximity of the neighbouring properties. And in my view, the Oktoberfest falls into that category.
Does it depend on the time in which these events take place? Because obviously, late at night, it would disturb children and perhaps older residents. But at what time would it be proposed that this music takes place, and for how long?
Councillor, you're correct in stating that the disturbance is greater later in the evening. I wouldn't describe this or other prior events as having taken place in the night time or very late, but even at 9 o'clock, clearly the capacity for disturbance is increasing, and as you say, there may be younger children or elderly people that are more disturbed at that time. And whilst I don't really wish to discuss the full details in front of the appellants for reasons of maintaining the privacy of the complainants, there are specific aspects of the complaints and concerns that have been put to me that identify those specific concerns. And in a more private setting, I'd be happy to give more detail on that if you feel it's relevant.
Sorry, I just want to ask about this event in July, and you use the word misled. Could you just confirm what the original application was for, and why you think it was, why you think the applicants did mislead?
Thank you, Councillor. Well, it's not just my opinion. Mark agreed that Hannah had misled responsible authorities on the application form in describing the regulated entertainment as being acoustic only. It was that wording that caused me to understand that the potential for nuisance from that event was less than it transpired to be. I did discuss my concerns prior to the event with Hannah, and she didn't at that point take the opportunity to highlight this mistake to me. Indeed, I provided reassurances both to senior colleagues within the licensing service and to elected members that I'd reviewed the content of that 10 and felt that it would be unlikely to present a level of nuisance that was not sort of tolerable. I gave that reassurance on the basis of the content of the 10. And as I say, it was misdescribed. I don't think there's any dispute over that.
So, when you say acoustic, are you just talking about speakers? Is that correct?
Well, I think that's generally what people understand by acoustic. That's certainly my understanding, unamplified. I think sometimes it is used also, perhaps inappropriately, to convey a low level or a minimal level of amplification. But having retrospectively inquired about the entertainment provision during that Jockfest event, it's quite clear that it wouldn't in any sort of consideration be described as acoustic. There was a full-blown rock band that concluded the event in the later evening, and it had been preceded by a couple of other full-scale bands with full amplification.
Thank you. Just one more question. Is it your understanding that the Jockfest event kept to time or not?
Yes, I believe it did.
Thank you.
Just a couple from me. Aside from the temporary events, do you think the establishment has stuck to its noise management plan for the external area?
There's been allegations of some perhaps minor infringements, but I think generally the premises have been quite good at adhering to the management plan, and indeed have responded to some of the concerns that have been raised by neighbours directly. So I don't really wish to over-egg the pudding here, councillors. It's not an overwhelming level of general dissatisfaction with the way the premises are managed. It really is a very specific issue that I'm taking here over the unsuitable nature of this particular event.
Can I just check, when outdoor events have taken place, have we always been notified of these? Or I'm just asking, are you aware of any events that we should have been notified of that we perhaps weren't, that may have caused issues?
No, I'm not aware of that having happened.
Thank you. Sam, is there anything you would like to ask at this stage?
How many other events? So I think the variation was at August 21 that it was approved and the noise management plan implemented. So how many events would you say have sort of taken place since?
I'm afraid I don't have an exact figure, but I'd estimate it to be maybe half a dozen. I'd be happy for the appellants to confirm.
Yeah, I was going to say it probably is more of a question for you guys actually. So have you had complaints in relation to each of those, or just, I think you sort of said Jockfest was the majority, but...
No, Jockfest was the main one. Retrospectively, people then raised some issues regarding other events, and one or two instances of disturbance just during normal trading have also come to light since. But I would say these were quite sort of typical for any noise-sensitive premises, and I think we always expect to get the odd complaint here or there. It doesn't necessarily indicate that there's an overwhelming problem. things generally do need to be managed, and we can provide advice and do seek to support premises to help to comply with the licences and uphold the Licensing Act in terms of the core objectives and preventing nuisance. Sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And you just finally described Oktoberfest as a bawdy affair. Just sort of, is that in terms of your experience with other events around the city, or?
Yeah, it's since been pointed out to me that if you look in the dictionary, bawdy might be suggesting some kind of salacious or sexual content, which I didn't mean to imply when I made the representation, and perhaps rowdy might have been a better word, and I'll stand by that. I think we all kind of know what Oktoberfest involves. As I say, it's promoted by a drinks company. I've never been to an Oktoberfest event that didn't involve consuming quite large quantities of lager, a few sausages, quite a lot of umpire music, serving wenches, leather shorts, leg slapping. You know, we all know what's involved, don't we?
That's fine for me, thank you.
Objective sake, you know, you say when this is not an ordinary food, this is Marks and Spencer's food. When True North tried to do something, we're conscious that we try to do something a bit different, and this umpire band does incredible covers of well-known songs, and it makes people actually laugh quite a lot, and that's where we found them. We thought they were amazing asset to bring to area. Wherever we had them in the summer, and people were nearly in tears, but they weren't jumping on tables and drinking. They were just laughing at the cover versions that were done by umpire bands. That's why we really like them. So I know there's this image of an Oktoberfest, I appreciate there's a few more people there than we expected for the Oktoberfest, but generally we don't want to upset people, and we try to run things to the best we can. That's why we until this year, well, pre-COVID, we'd have been fighting to have things till 11 o'clock, but now the world has changed. Anybody that lives next to a pub wants a life like their life was while we were closed. And our industry is plagued by people who want the world to go back to when the pubs weren't open. And that's why there are so many objections these days. And it's very difficult for us in the industry to run pubs and create that atmosphere or put events on which are for the community without upsetting anybody. That's the problem. That's how the world's changed since COVID in our industry. So we've taken that on board. We're generally trying to build close events, end them now at 9 o'clock rather than 11 o'clock, to try to fit with the new order.
Thank you. Do you have actually any questions for Mr. Pace before you actually get the chance to state your case and tell us things like that?
Yeah, but just a couple of things, confirmations, affirmations, whatever they happen to be. But I'd take a bit of issue with the term misled. I think, and also tell you about how we're also going to make sure that that doesn't happen in the past. There's an accountability thing from us at True North that I think when we did the Jock Fest, we'd run it in several other premises. We've got 14 in South Yorkshire, and we'd run festivals in around 6 or 7. Jock Fest was one of the earlier ones, and when the 10 went in, Hannah, as the general manager, did put the 10 in. She did fill it out saying acoustic music. I wouldn't say she misled. I think she maybe didn't understand the full nature. Sorry, can I see if I can just finish? Sorry. It will. No, I'm taking slight issue with the word misled, and I'm trying to contextualise that within how that was done. So I don't completely agree that Hannah has misled on this occasion. I think she didn't completely understand the full context of the event. And you know, we'll say hands up. We've learnt a lot from things from that event. In that, I've had a conversation with Neil afterwards that said, look, you know, we wouldn't look to run that sort of event again. We would look to run acoustic nature, which is basically single duo performers on a lower level. The bands that we had there, yeah, we agree that at the time of night, if we did get complaints at that time, then maybe it wasn't right for that. But there's a degree of us learning about that premises and our neighbours as well, because we've been there since November. after we invested £500,000 and gave jobs to around 20 people, there's a degree of learning about the nature of that business, and I think from that we've taken a learning. We'll put our hands up and say, look, we wouldn't run that event in that context again. So sorry, yeah. The next question would be. So the question, Neil. Sorry, the question would be. So as we sort of like stated, there's 6 events that we've run under 10s before. Now, you said around the Jock Fest that there'd been a considerable number of complaints. Can you, because I'm aware of the ones that you sent through to me on email, how many would you actually quantify considerable as? Oh, sorry, my bad.
So it's exactly as I described to you in the email after you'd requested that detail. I can refer to, I forget if it was 5 or 6 households, perhaps you can advise.
Is that the number of gardens, the actual number of houses that gardens?
It's the immediate neighbours. I don't want to identify specific households, but all of the complainants are close to the car park, and as I suggested earlier, they're probably in that photo, but I don't want to pick out individual houses. I don't think that's appropriate.
If I can just state, sorry, for the record, it says 4 households in the email that you sent to me. 4 households complain about the Jockfest event within a short time scale. Complaints received between the 18th and 20th.
And then I go on to talk about the 5th complainant that contacted later and described noise concerns and other public order offences, including vomiting into gardens and urinating into gardens and in the street.
That's a normal Saturday football match.
I'm not seeking to dispute that, but I think it is perhaps not normal. It's very welcome. It's not normal for this premises that's in a quiet, leafy residential suburb. It was a problem that seems to have been specifically associated with the music event.
If I could just ask a question, I did note a comment about loss of confidence or lack of confidence in management as well, which if you could elaborate a little bit more on.
Well, nobody likes to be misled, do they? It does reduce confidence in future submissions. You did suggest to me that Hannah would be taking a back step in future from management of these type of events. I'm not sure if that reflects any of your own concerns, but I believe that the current management arrangements would still be as they are for the event that's proposed here.
Sorry, that's Hannah, any questions from you?
I suppose it's not so much a question, but obviously I have spoke to Neil regarding the Jockfest 10, and upon reading it, I'd obviously just submitted what I wanted to do in the wrong section. So my intention was never to mislead anyone, it's just that I'd obviously stated it in the wrong section. So when you say describe the nature of the event, I'd obviously put about acoustic, and again, on speaking to you, acoustic obviously, in my eyes, was a small PA with one person, and obviously from learning from you, Neil, that's not how you perceive acoustic to be. And then obviously when it says about relevant entertainment on that day, I'd obviously put in there was live bands, etc. So in my defence, I did put down that we were going to have live bands, it's just obviously I put it down in the wrong section.
I'm sorry, I just don't quite understand your explanation for the error. You said
I think
that acoustic...
the committee will make its own mind up
Okay,
on this,
I
but
apologise.
a point's been made and an explanation's been offered, and we will consider it when we retire. Now, it's over to you to actually tell us why you think we should allow this event to take place and how it will be managed.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Just to give some context, True North has invested, as I say, £500,000 in what was a dilapidated pub. We've put a food offer in there, functions. It runs as on a day-to-day basis, it runs as a nice local community pub. It's a small pub. We have around 60 covers on the sort of bottom floor, around another 40 upstairs. And what we tend to find with some of these pubs is when we come to invest in them, is that because of the small nature of the pub, and because of where it is geographically in Sheffield, you know, on the top of a hill, sort of out of the way, with not a great deal of footfall or traffic, is that we do run these external events to attract more attention, bring in a different customer crowd to what maybe would be within 5 to 10 minutes walking distance. So we do have to try and run some events that give a little bit of a reason to visit and bring some custom through the doors, because as you can imagine, £500,000 investment means that we need to get significant people back through the doors. When we have been operating the premises since November last year, I think it was about the 10th or 11th of November, somewhere around there, that we got open. Since then, we've put in for 6 tents, which is correct, and Neil made the correct assumption that it was 6. The first 4 were a May bank holiday weekend with background music. We also had the Queen's Jubilee with acoustic and background music. We had a wedding for 100 people in June, and then we had what we called the Summer of Love on the 18th of June, which was a DJ with quite a substantial PA system that came with it. And I wasn't aware of any complaints about any of those 4 events. When we come to the Jock Fest, as I've already explained, you know, I think it was a learning for us. It was too much for that local area. As we've established, there's a slight moot point about whether it's 4 or 5 in terms of the wording of an email, but you know, 4 or 5 complaints over what was, as Neil puts, you know, a considerable event of a rowdy nature, you know, and we've learned from that. And the reason that we're here today is to explain that the Oktoberfest is not a similar event. The Jockfest went on until 10 p.m. On this occasion, we're running it on a Saturday. You know, if it was run on a Tuesday or a Wednesday when kids were going to bed and this, that, and the other, then completely understandable. But it's run on a Saturday. There's only one 45-minute set, just to make you aware, Neil, not 2, as you did mention. That 45-minute set runs from 7 o'clock till 7:45. After that, there'll be like a playlist that just goes on from, again, umpire music. Now, when we did put in the 10, I believe we put in it was for 250 people. It's just a sort of normal thing to put in, right, that's the capacity. It's a ticketed event, which is advertised on Eventbrite, and we're ticketing for 100 people. And the tickets are, by their nature, sort of tried to include, it includes the umpire music, it includes a drink, 1 drink, and it includes also like a substantial 28-centimetre bratwurst of authentic German heritage. There'll be I don't think there'll be any lederhosen, we can't afford that. Knee slapping is strictly forbidden. But to me, we're holding this event in there's an area that will be shown on the plan, which is a covered area, which we can cover all sides, top and sides. We intend to sort of cover, I think out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides possible, we'll be covering 4 of those sides to just to keep some of that noise down. The umpire band do their 45-minute set. People are sort of seated almost in it's in an outdoor bench style there. So it's a seated arrangement, and we're looking for 100 people to come in there. It's not of the nature of Jockfest, where I think I'm not sure, Henry, if you could, maybe about 300.
But out of those, a large percentage were families, weren't they? You know.
Yeah, so I mean, sorry,
could you just repeat what you just said?
But believe it or not, we are quite family orientated, so we look for entertainment that will bring families out. And even though we had nearly 300 people came to Jockfest, there was a considerable amount of families that came out and wanted to hang out and be entertained. You know, they were a family-focused pub group, really. It's a shame that the neighbours were upset, but and Anna didn't fill in the form correct, but she meant well. She didn't mean to fill it in wrong. That's all I'm saying.
Sorry, just to continue. So the event is 100 compared to probably 300 at capacity that we had at Jockfest. So the differences are, it's not amplified. There's a lot less people attending the event, and it runs between 6 till 9 p.m, whereas Jockfest ran till 10 p.m. So we think there's substantial differences compared to the Jockfest event, and that's why we wanted to contest that today. While at the same time acknowledging that, you know, we do wish to work with Neil, and we've exchanged an email to make sure that we work in a spirit of cooperation rather than, you know, by this nature it's somewhat adversarial in here, but please don't take it that we have that same relationship outside. So that's certainly not what I would like to convey or have with Neil going forward. We run 14 pubs in South Yorkshire. You know, if we have one problem, a big problem with one pub, it casts a net over all 14, so we have to be responsible operators. One thing I would like to bring to this conversation as well is I did ask a lady called, and just bear me 1 second, Catherine Jarvis, who is the licensing enforcement officer for the South Yorkshire Police, for some feedback around if she had any objections. And I also asked her if she could tell me what events since November had been pulled up in terms of our association with the Horse and Jockey and how it had been run in her sort of opinion. So I did receive an email from Catherine, and just bear with me a second while I do find those pieces. Okay, right. So we had, I think, there's 4 issues that came to light which were put down against the Horse and Jockey. Number 1 was a vulnerable female asking for staff for assistance where staff provided help and made contact with the police. That, she noticed, is a very positive interaction between the licensing and the police and the Horse and Jockey. Number 2 was on the 13th of April, which was an alarm sounding, which was a faulty alarm that we've since had fixed. Number 3, on the 9th of May, was an assault at the premise, where there's details about there was an assault between 2 gentlemen on the premises where there was no further action. It was a very isolated incident in the Horse and Jockey. We don't have a massive problem. Well, we don't really, I think, and this comes down to the confidence in management. I do believe that it's well run because Hannah's run that in a way that hasn't had a lot of, you know, assaults, violence, this, that and the other that can happen in some of these local community pubs where a lot of people do know each other and come across each other in where alcohol is concerned. And number 4 was, and this is just to note that we have CCTV everywhere as well, and lots of things that stop some of those interactions occurring. Number 5 was the noise complaint for the Jockfest, where, as Neil said, we did have 4 door staff on during that day. Neil didn't say that, but Neil has pointed out to me that he had a complainant say that there was some urination and somebody vomiting. It's nothing that we'd seen, but obviously we've got to take heed of that complaint from that particular person. So in the 4 times that we've had any interaction with the police there, it's not been a real negative interaction. We do have a good relationship with them. Hannah is a member or joined onto the pub watch. I was going to call it neighbourhood watch, but something similar. And I just wanted to give that context of how we're viewed by South Yorkshire Police in terms of the licensing department. So hopefully it gives you a bit more of a context about what the event is and who we are.
Thank you. Are you happy for me to open this up to questions then now?
Yeah.
Great. We'll start with Roger this time.
Thank you very much. I presume the stage area will be where the grass is that right? And is the car park being used for the audience?
By the nature, in terms of where the brass band will play, yeah, the idea would be that we want to sort of contain the customers in our covered area, because no doubt it will rain. So if we've got them under the covered area, the brass band will sort of play immediately in front of them. Does that answer that question? So it will be on the tarmacked area that the brass band would play.
With no cars there. Sorry. In other words, where the car park is, that's where the audience will be.
No, sorry. In the car park, there is a covered structure that's got around 100 covers underneath it. So it's all waterproofed. So the customers will be sat under there while the brass band will be on the tarmac playing as it would into that structure.
I'll come in a couple of minutes.
Yes, right. You say that most of your trade is local because of the location of the pub. What sort of relationship do you have with sort of residents, and what sort of communication do you have with people in the area?
I'd actually say I know quite a few of them by name, and they do visit us quite regularly, and I've always given an open door for them to come and talk to me with any concerns. You know, I've had emails with them concerns over Jockfest that have come to me personally, and we've kind of come to solutions together and further events. So yeah, I'd say I'd know them all well, and we have a good relationship.
When you're putting on an event, is it something that you actually consult people about as well? Do you provide notice to residents that something slightly different might be happening?
Yeah, we put out neighbour letters and have gone down all the surrounding areas to the proximity of the pub to let them know, and basically my email's on there and the contact number of the venue, so if anyone has any concerns beforehand they can contact me.
And of the sort of 100 covers that you're hoping to sell for this event, and I know you need to attract people from other parts of the city, but how many of those do you think are likely to go to local people? Is this something that local people will be coming to as well?
I'd probably say majority it would be the local people that come to us for those sorts of events. I mean, not to bring up Jockfest again, but that was a community event and it was everybody local.
And you say the event will conclude at 9 o'clock. What happens at 9 o'clock when you've got lots of partygoers who've been having a good time? How do they then disperse, or what happens at that stage?
With experience of President, once the sort of music is finished, you see a natural flow of people staying away, but obviously with our noise policy, we can have people outside till 11. So obviously the music would go off and they could stay out there. And then obviously we've got the pub inside after that.
When the temperature will drop by then,
So just to interject, there's on the tickets that we're selling on Eventbrite, it's very clear that the activity runs between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. So at the point at 9 p.m, that's when we would sort of start issuing people back inside.
Thank you. Maruf, is there anything you want to come in?
Yeah, sorry, just a couple of quick questions, specifically to Hannah, please. You said, even though the event's on till 9, that people can stay outside till 11. Have you ever had people stay after 11 in the past?
We don't allow it, so basically we go at 10:30 and tell them that they need to be coming in.
Okay, so can I just clarify then? You say you don't allow it. How do you stop people from staying outside? How do you stop people from staying outside?
We just have to monitor it and kick them and get them back in.
Okay. Just a few more questions, again, specifically for Hannah. Previously, you said you understood acoustic to be a small PA with one person. Can you confirm that is what took place at Jockfest?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. So, have you ever apologised for your error in the application form?
Yes.
And was that in writing or verbally?
Verbally.
Okay, thank you.
Just a general point of clarification, just because I haven't got a copy of the noise management plan. Is the outside music going through a limiter, or are we dispensing with that, and that's sort of why we've gone for the 10? Or
Yeah, there's no limit because there are no speakers outside. There's no limit.
Are you having door staff for this one, or is it not?
It's yeah, I mean, because we're at the moment wondering if we're going to be running it or not. Normally we'd sort of, we'd look at where we were going to get in terms of the ticket sales, because it is going to be a ticketed event. And then we'll take a consideration over it's like 1 or 2. I mean, for 100 people, you know, it's an easily manageable site, because the way that we manage it is that we let people in through the car park entrance, and we can sort of contain them in there and have door staff on there rather than through the main pub. So it'd be a 1 or maximum 2 door staff event.
And I think you said you'd given your email to people sort of in the run-up to the event. Has anyone got in touch so far with any concerns? Or?
Well, obviously, I've got the letter there waiting, but obviously we're just waiting for the outcome.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So,
if you were to receive any contact from any residents or local people, what would sort of your next steps be?
well, just trying to show them that, you know, it's going to be managed and what the event's about and how it's a lot smaller. Go from there, I suppose.
Okay, so like you said, you've got that good sort of open dialogue with everybody going forward, so that's good. That's done for me, thank you.
Mr Pates, do you have any questions for the applicants?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. There's been quite a bit of reference to the capacity of the event. Could I just ask you to confirm that the temporary event notice stated a capacity of 250?
Yes, it did.
So, why 250?
I suppose I wasn't 100% sure how many tickets we were going to sell, so sorry, I just put 250.
Would other customers who hadn't purchased tickets be able to enter the indoor portion of the premises just sort of for normal trade? But were you perhaps anticipating that would contribute to the overall number of persons on the premises?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
So, and you said earlier that after the 9 p.m. finish for the event that's stated on the temporary event notice, which is just to cover the outdoor music that isn't otherwise permitted, people may stay on the premises, including the extended outdoor area, until the 11 p.m. curfew. Would you prohibit non-ticket holders from also going outside in between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m?
I think I'd sent this in a bit of a mitigation to you previously, Neil, that I'd been happy to say on that event date that we would, you know, the music finishes at 9. I'd then consider it in terms of being acceptable to get everybody back indoors within 30 minutes of that, and actually, you know, close the outdoor area for 9:30.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think there was some confusion on my part over the precise duration of the umpire band. I can apologise for that. So can I just ask you to confirm that when the live umpire music isn't playing, that there will be recorded umpire music playing?
Yeah, there'll be a recorded umpire playlist, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think that's the end of my questions.
So that's almost the end of your ordeal. It's just back over to you to sum up your application and tell us anything else you'd like us to take into account when we make a decision on this.
Maybe to help matters, would you like to set a decibel rating for the live music that's played? Because we can control that. You know, it's not the live music, sorry. You know, the backing tape, the umpire music. If this was acceptable, we've got decibel readers. If you wanted to say what you'd be happy with.
think I just have to answer that I want to maintain my objection to the event. As I stated in my initial representation, it wasn't merely on the basis of the likelihood of disturbance being caused by the live and recorded music, but also on the basis of the general rowdy, shall we say, rather than bawdy, nature of the event and the likelihood of disturbance from the increased capacity in the external area and the natural exuberance that goes along with an event of this character. So whilst I welcome the offer, and it's something that I would certainly normally be happy to discuss in the context of other temporary events which might be submitted, for this particular event, I don't think it would offer effective mitigation of the likelihood of public nuisance.
Okay.
Anything else you would like us to tell us before we get the options and take a decision on this? You don't have to.
No, I mean, it's just very difficult when there's really strong adjectives thrown around like rowdy and raucous. That's not what we're intending to do. When we've had this, you know, we have got previous experience of this Oktoberfest band. It's a 4-piece band with brass instruments. We had it in the Forum, or on the terrace at the Forum, in obviously on Division Street. Nobody jumped up on tables. It was a similar timing. Nobody, and this is in, you know, sunlight. Nobody jumped up on tables, started acting in a raucous way. It was certainly an easy to manage event. So I just take issue with, everybody might have an image of what Oktoberfest is like in Munich. You know, it's not that sort of event. It's sponsored by a decent size. We take ownership of this event. It's not run by by Hofmeister. They simply sponsor us to do it. And I just take issue with rowdy and raucous. It's not what we intend it to be. That's very difficult for us to manage as well. And we don't want neighbours complaining, because essentially we've got to work in the community around them. So we don't want to create a rod for our own back.
Thank you. Could we have the options then, please, Jane?
Certainly. Okay, so the options open to the committee are to acknowledge the temporary event notice, allowing the event to go ahead on the proposed date as per the notice submitted, or to give the premises user a counter notice if it considers it necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives.
Thank you, Jane. Could I ask you to now leave the room with the licensing officer? We'll take legal advice and make a decision, and as soon as we've made that, we'll invite you back in and tell you what that is this morning, or this afternoon now. Been helpful, but also made it a difficult decision. I'm not going to do this like X Factor or whatever. The decision is to grant the 10s. It's been a difficult decision because the last event you had clearly wasn't appropriate for the premises, clearly caused problems with immediate neighbours, and colleagues like Neil here were unable to do anything to help you manage that better because they weren't aware of the type of event that was going to be for whatever reason. However, this seems to be a different event. You appear to be taking into account the needs of residents, that you will be finished for 9 o'clock. And of course, you're working on the basis that if this event also causes significant problems, it will significantly reduce the chance for you to be granted any further temporary events at the premises. We hope that's not necessary. We hope it's a successful event. We hope colleagues aren't inundated with complaints as a result of the event. And we hope you go on to do very well at this premises and get a return on that investment you've made. The other thing that stood you in good stead is that True North is not a company that historically has caused us licensing issues. You do generally appear to manage the venues well, and we don't see you sitting on that side of the room, which is nice, and probably even nicer from your point of view, not to be sat there on a regular basis. So that's the decision of the licensing subcommittee this morning, and thank you to everyone for your time and your assistance.
Just to tie it in, Neil, obviously you have the right of appeal against that decision, given that we've acknowledged the 10 to go ahead. So should you wish to exercise that, it's within 21 days to the magistrate's court. I think there's also a provision that it has to be before 5 days before the event takes place. So obviously with the event being on the 17th, that would reduce that period. But we'll send you an email afterwards anyway, and a notice to you guys just confirming that the 10 can go ahead as per your application. All right. Thank you everyone for this morning. Thank you.